The Apostle Paul, in writing to the church at Ephesus, said, "For you are saved by grace through faith, and this not of yourself, it is the gift of God, not by works, lest any man should boast." So what is faith? And what does it look like to have faith? Let's talk about that. So I Googled, what is faith? And I got 971 million hits. That's a lot of people saying a lot of things, trying to explain what faith is. But I don't think it has to be that complicated. I really think that it is as simple, or so simple, that a child can understand. In fact, I had a conversation with my 6-year-old grandson the other day that I'll share with you at the end of the video to illustrate what I'm talking about. Hebrews 1:11 tells us that faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. A prominent theologian, in defining faith, described it as this: as trusting or depending on God based on the fact that we take him at his word and believe what he has said. Now that definition is pretty good to help us understand Hebrews 11:1, but let me share with you what I was reading in Deuteronomy chapter 1 this last weekend that I think will help us to understand a little bit better what faith and having faith really is. So as we open up reading in Deuteronomy 1, it's Moses standing there before the nation of Israel. He's speaking to them, addressing them 40 years after they had been freed from Egypt, which means he's talking to the next generation. He's not talking to the same ones that left Egypt 40 years ago. But what he's doing is he's giving them a history lesson. He's telling them, 40 years ago, we were here, getting ready to enter the promised land. And let me tell you what happened. He's telling the Israelites before him that 40 years before, they hesitated. They said, wait a minute, before we go into the possess the land, let's send in some spies. So Moses agreed. And so they gathered one representative from each tribe, and they went into the land to scout it for 40 days. And when they came back, they gave their report. And initially, the report was good. See, Moses had told them, make sure you bring back some of that fruit that grows there. We hear it's good land. And they did that. They cut off a branch from a grapevine vineyard, and it was so big and heavy, it took 2 of them to carry it out. And they all agreed that the land, yes, the land was good. But almost immediately, 10 of those scouts turned their reports negative. See, they said, the people that we saw there, they're big and strong. We don't know if we can push them out and possess the land. Their cities are great, and they got these huge walls. And we even saw giants. Caleb and Joshua, the other 2 spies, they said, no, let's go in. This is the land that God has given us. He is calling us to take possession of this land. Let's go do it. Instead, the nation listened to the 10. You see, they didn't believe God. They didn't trust in what he had said. These are the same people that saw God bring down all these plagues on Egypt. The same God that they saw divide the waters of the Red Sea when the Egyptian army was pursuing them, and so they could cross on dry land and then have the waters go back and destroy that great pursuing army. These were the same Israelites that had seen God work. And now they were hesitating. They didn't believe him. They didn't put any trust in him. So Sadly, God said, okay, if you don't want to believe me, if you don't want to trust me, if you want to keep rejecting me, then this is what's going to happen. None of you is going to enter the land. You will all perish in the wilderness. See, Moses was reminding the Israelites before him that their ancestors had failed to show faith. And their lack of faith kept them from entering the promised land. In the same way, it's failure to have faith in God that is going to keep a lot of people from heaven. You see, this is what Jesus was telling Nicodemus when he said that they must believe in him, and those that believe in him would not perish, but have everlasting life. See, that's what having faith is. That's what it looks like, is believing God, taking his word and trusting in him. You see, the Israelites didn't trust in what God had told them. They put their faith in their own abilities or inabilities to possess the land. And in the same way, people are trying their best to get into heaven by works. But like Paul wrote, we are saved by grace through faith. And this not of yourself. It is the gift of God, not by works, lest any man should boast. Let's believe God in what he says. Let's exercise faith. Let's take him for his word, at his word, and put our trust in him. Now, I mentioned that my grandson understood faith. Let me explain. Recently, I called him. I had one of those video chats, and I had found out that his favorite Bible story was the story of David and Goliath. And so I asked him, hey, I hear that David and Goliath is your favorite Bible story. Why is that? And so, he got excited because he wants to talk about it. But, being a six-year-old kid, he starts getting fidgety and he's trying to figure out the words to use. So I tried to help him along. I said, is it because he was a hero? And he kind of looked at me and said, yeah, sort of, but that's not it. And so, as we were trying to get him to speak up, I said, is it because he trusted God? And all of a sudden, my grandson stopped. He became still. This look came over him and he said, yes, because he trusted him with all his might. And he thrust his arm in the air, and seeing that just blessed me. You see, my grandson understood that that's what it was. Trusting God, believing in him, and trusting him with all his might. My prayer, brothers and sisters, whoever's watching this video, is that you too will learn to have faith like that. Just trust God with all your might. Read his word. Study it diligently. Believe it. Trust it. Show faith. God bless you, and I'll see you next week.